Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is George O'Brien. Thanks for being on the show, George.
Thank you.
George and his wife, Angela, went from 2 W-2 jobs with a few single-family homes to ownership in nearly 100 units and another 150 plus unit in joint ventures. They just relocated to Florida after setting that as a goal to occur before 2025. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
You get that early, too. George's focus now is scaling his property management company, Progressive Property Investments, and growing his network to start syndications. George, welcome to the show. I love hearing stories like that. It's like, most of the listeners and many of us, have been in those shoes at one time or another, or, looking forward to, being in your shoes now, right? Making it and getting, setting that goal and making it happen. Not everyone sticks to it, and gets to that point where they accomplish that goal. But I think there's some key things initially that need to happen when you're thinking about those goals and how we plan for those things that I think you can help us with. Give us a little more about, your background, and let's dive in and help the listener to learn from how you've made it happen, and so they can do it too.
Sure. I've always kind of been around real estate and construction, growing up in South Central Pennsylvania and on a farm. I was always, doing stuff with my uncles, learning different trades and what have you. And, the old mindset that when you graduate college and you get your first real job, you're supposed to be responsible and buy your first home. And, we did that. And I was a bachelor at the time, had some friends move in and they were paying rent per room. And I was like, well, this is pretty great. I didn't really realize what I was doing at the time. And, we fast forward a couple of years, met my wife, and the friends moved out, and we realized we wanted to have something a little bit larger. And we bought pre-recession, the first house, and during the recession, the second, and we knew that we weren't going to get the return on the smaller home. We kept it as a rental. Fast forward again another 5 years, and we were in Western Pennsylvania. I had the opportunity to come out and work as an executive at a local YMCA, and we were doing good with keeping both of those rentals, single family rentals, 3.5 hours away. And that conversation everybody has at the end of the month, the monthly budget meetings, and what can we do to cut expenses? We have all these goals to vacation here and there and home improvements. And, I just said, listen, instead of focusing on the expenses, let's focus on how we can generate revenue. We took some equity out of our home and line of credit and bought up a couple of duplexes here in Western Pennsylvania. And again, that was in the spring of 2016. And, we went at it full throttle. Initially, I was doing a lot of the work myself, and we got to the point from a scaling where we were able to hire subs, and then eventually hire a full-time operations manager to help us with those assets.
Nice. No, that's incredible. Well, I want to dive into that so you can help the listener even more in talking about, just how the goals that you set in the beginning, and then just talk about planning, how you plan to reach that goal, some of those things, because it's so crucial in the beginning. If you can't see those things, you can't see that end in mind. I know for myself, even for my family, it was so important because it took me away from them for a long time. It took so much work on my part while they were working, as well, but they had to understand that Dad was working towards something and had to paint that picture, for them also. Tell me how you did that, and then how you plan to, and to get to that end goal.
Very similar to you. We were, both working W-2 jobs, and, 9 to 5, 8 to 5, 8 to 6. And then in the evenings and the weekends, first thing in the morning, I was out on the, at the rental properties doing our thing. And, it was not great. And we knew we needed to get to a certain number of units based on the cash flow that was kicking out for us to hire subs. And we also just knew that, the money was coming in, but the money was immediately going out. It wasn't like, you buy, 2 duplexes and the cash flow is just great. If you want to continue to grow and scale, that cash comes in and the cash immediately goes out and then some. And you just need to have, conversations. I would say to the listeners is to really have an understanding. You may have a goal, monetary goal or a number of units, but really the most important thing would be to have the goal of making sure you're on the same page with your partner, whether it's your wife or your significant other, or it's your actual business partners, to truly understand what the vision is, knowing that, there's going to be times where it's uncomfortable because one of you is out on the job, one at the units, or and the other one's at home taking care of all the kids and the normal day-to-day household things. And also there's going to be times where if you're pulling your own resources into funding some of these projects that, things may get tight from time to time. And as long as you have your partnerships in place, your family in place, and everybody understands what's going on, you should have no reason to be successful.
That's awesome. I love how you brought up, maybe you have a business partner that you need to be on the same page with, but your spouse is definitely a business partner, whether they're in the business or not. It affects them so much. Tell me a little bit about that process with, say, you and your wife, Angela, while doing that, working so hard, 2 W-2 jobs, making this happen. Tell me a little bit about, keeping that end goal in mind, and how, maybe communications, or, how you all communicate, maybe some things that are very important for the listener to be thinking about as they're fixing to dive into this, and, thinking about the toll it's going to take on your family as well.
Just have very clear expectations, whether you do it our route, the route we did, it was, the BRRRR method. We didn't even know what the BRRRR method was, buy, renovate, rehab, and rent and repeat, refinance, repeat. And, or you do it through the syndications, just have a very clear understanding of, let's say for the syndication pieces, how much capital we comfortable with, having working for us, how much we want to hold back in reserves. Have them part of the process. If they want to be involved, if they don't drag them kicking and screaming, just make sure you have boundaries. And for us, it was, initially I was finding the properties and sit with her and vetting them and running through the numbers. And that wasn't something she was really too excited to do. So I identified that, sometimes you have to move quickly. So we had an understanding that I was allowed to pull the trigger on any property I wanted as long as it fit our initial criteria. And within a certain market, anything that deviated from that, for example, anything that deviated from that, we'd have to have a conversation about. So, for example, most of our stuff was residential, and we came across a really nice commercial mixed use, a little bit higher price point than we were used to. And we sat and analyzed it, looked at it, and made sure we both were really comfortable with it before we moved forward. Before we partnered with any other investors, we wanted to make sure that she was comfortable, that we all had the same philosophy and methodology on how we are going to manage those, what they're going to look like. So they're on the same page. But also for her to have involvement, she was really passionate about the look and the feel and the flow of a property. So early on, she would go into the properties with me and look at, the layout, the functionality of those things, and also the color scheme. And then from there, pretty much the entire portfolio is centered around, designed around a certain color and a certain style. And we rinse and repeat if there's anything that kind of deviates from that we think should be looked at, and then we involve her in those kind of concepts.
No, that's awesome. And I like how you talked about too, you created criteria, earlier on for purchasing properties, and that you both agreed on, and just agreed that if it was something different than that you would have another discussion. I think that's important in business partnerships and marriage, when you're moving forward on something like this, because those big financial decisions affect your spouse or your business partner in a big way, no doubt about it. What about, I know it is some stuff that I communicated before the interview. You talked about like nonprofit to significant profits in 4 years. Elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, yeah, we had the 2 rentals in South Central PA, and moved to the western part of Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh, in the summer of 2012. and loved my job as a nonprofit executive. And the W-2 was great, and but we knew that we wanted to get to a certain point, and everybody was asking. A lot of the banks were going, when's it going to be enough? What's the number? And I was like, really, I don't have a number. Initially, I wanted to get to 88 units so I could hire a property manager. And how I calculated that was based on the income that those units should generate, and then the 10% for the management. What did that look like? So I didn't have to be running to Lowe's and Home Depot to pick up materials for the guys. I didn't have to vet all the tenants, those sorts of things. And then the next goal was, replacing the W-2 income. And then from there, it was just really looking to identify partnerships that we could form and assets we could add to the portfolio. Now, we pretty much tripled what the W-2 used to be, and it's on our terms. And it's the nice thing is it's an asset that's going to continue to generate those things. I always use the analogy, and I tell people that Warren, about doing real estate. You can make money while you sleep. You don't actually have to be clocking in and clocking out. The money is coming in from real estate 24/7, 365.
It's an incredible lifestyle change, right? I mean, or mindset shift that has to happen even before the lifestyle change happens. And so, no, it's incredible. And I appreciate you elaborating on that. Just that plan to get to the end goal, I think, is so important. What are some ways maybe the plan changed, while you're getting to your goal that maybe you didn't expect?
Well, I think, a lot of it, the plans changed just based on things that happened at work, during initially, we both were happy in our W-2, and, my wife shifted her job, and because she was not as passionate with her previous employer as she wanted to be. And I said, listen, being passionate about what you do is the most important thing. So go ahead and, take a step back, reevaluate things, and go and attack. Adding kids. We have 4 children. At the time when we first started, we had 2, and that's a lot. It's a lot to commit to. For me to continue to be growing the business like we did, and for me to ask her to take on all that burden, it's not possible. It's not fair. So those sorts of things. Different time constraints pulling you one way or the other, and market conditions. Especially now with COVID, but even prior to that, we got into a market where there wasn't a whole lot of competition, and then all of a sudden people started seeing that there was an opportunity, and that really impacted the returns. But you just got to be extremely fluid and nimble, and being able to attack each day differently from one day to the next.
What's the hardest part for you as far as like getting to this, your first syndicated deal? I know you're moving that direction. What's been the hardest part as far as making that happen?
I think it's, comfort. Initially I was very comfortable getting in and renovating the properties, doing them all myself, just based on, my passion and my background and experience level. And then, there's a little discomfort when you start working with partners because you're not 100% owner. And I'll say that to your listeners is the thing that I say constantly is a percentage of something is better than 100% of nothing. And so again, going from doing everything ourselves, 100% ownership, to then joint ventures, there was a little discomfort there. But the syndication piece was just something I knew that I wanted to get to, because it's a lot of work to take down a 4-unit property, a 20-unit property. And, our largest asset right now that we own is 22 units. And that's a lot of work. Whereas if you can get into a, 100, 200, 300 plus unit property, and you still own essentially 50, 60 units of that through syndication, that's really truly how you scale. But again, it's more of you've never done it before. You never, experiences you don't have. So it's just really it has to be a mindset thing. That's why about 2 years ago, I decided to invest in myself and go to a boot camp. We brought our operations manager for PPI down to that as well to learn. He knew a lot of what just from operations, but he didn't know everything that I did. And that was a good platform for him to be at. For me, the only two reasons I went: one, to network, and two, to learn more about syndications. And since then, it's been, I'd say, for my professional development time, it's been about 60 to 70% of my development time has really been focused on learning more about that. Joining presentations where people are asking me to be part of their syndication group, those sorts of things. And we come back, you get excited, you're like, oh, this is a great deal. And you sit down and look at the numbers with my wife, and we say, hey, is now the time to do that? There's been some great opportunities, but again, we also look at what we're able to do from a joint venture side, the margins we're getting in Western Pennsylvania, and the opportunity for us to both kind of double dip. You get an opportunity to be part of a deal, but then also have the opportunity to be the property manager for that, which is great. So that we've kept syndications in our hip pocket, knowing that we're going to do it eventually when the right deal comes about. But right now, the joint venture seems to be a little bit more profitable for us because we have a piece both on the property management side and also the asset on the balance sheet.
Speak a little bit to starting your own management company and maybe why you did that versus a third party.
Sure. Again, some of the background, I was good with my hands. We were there good doing the work, didn't have the money initially to hire contractors to do a lot of work for us. We wanted an extra layer of liability coverage there. That way, if there would be something that happened at the property, it would fall into the property management before it come back to the ownership group. And then really the one reason why we really sped it up as far as the building of the business was when we started doing some joint ventures. Everybody comes in, a third. Everybody owns equal shares, and the other people are going to be somewhat passive and review the financials. But I'm going to be the one turning wrenches, doing work orders, putting tenants in heads in beds. Therefore, then you should be compensated for that. And then it just really grew organically from there, and it's been great. Now we do some third party stuff with other investors, which has been really helpful. We've, through networking and through being on podcasts like this one, we've been able to pick up, I think, 7 or 8 different investors from all across the country that learned our story, came to Greensburg, where we used to live and where most of the assets are, which is in Western Pennsylvania, and others have bought properties from us or with us sight unseen, just based on some of our track record and the numbers we put together. Nice.
George, how do you prepare for a downturn?
Holding on as much cash as possible. I think that's really it. Being mindful that when we build our pro formas, when we're analyzing a deal, we are extremely conservative on the revenue side. We don't ever factor into rent bumps. I think that's how a lot of investors are going to get themselves in trouble, is that they've been super aggressive on what they're foreseeing as future rent bumps. And then we're extremely aggressive on the expense side. We fund, when we build our pro formas, we put 10% vacancy and also a 10% maintenance reserve in on a monthly basis. And our typical vacancy is around 2.5%. So extremely conservative on the revenue, extremely aggressive on the expenses, and seems to shake out extremely well when the results happen.
What do you expect to happen in the real estate market over the next 6 to 12 months?
I think it's going to vary depending on the market. One of the things that we've seen, historically, in the Rust Belt, that Northeast, is, you don't see crazy appreciation plays. Those properties tend to stay stabilized pretty well, and the rents also hold pretty true. It's not a sexy market by any means. You don't have the population growth, the job growth as some of the southern states and even out west, but you do see some strong rents that are kind of at market rent. There's no speculation with that. So it's tough to say. I think there is going to be some downturn. I think there's going to be some larger assets that are going to become available. I think the last 5 years where people were paying crazy money for properties just to have them. And then they promised the moon to their investors. Mm-hmm. And when they can't deliver, those notes are going to be called. And I think there's opportunities then for, folks that have been a little bit more conservative and have the capital set aside for those opportunities to really attack it. But again, I think it depends on the market that you're in and the type of asset you have. For example, we have a pretty stable portfolio. We're not heavy on college. We're not heavy on Section 8, a low income. It's relatively stable. We have about 25% of our portfolio is college. When I say college, it's not just undergrad, it's graduate and postgraduate. We consider all those college. If you're 80% college, you could be in a tough position right now. We've seen that in different markets where we're at. So I think it's really smart for people to have a very balanced portfolio. If you're 100% real estate and residential, that's great, but then don't go all one way or the other.
No, that's some great advice right there, George. Be diversified, right? And think about what asset class you're in. Well, George, with 4 kids, and I think you had 2 when you started in the real estate business, and you've had 2 since then. Both you and your wife, Angela, working W-2 jobs, making this shift, moving to Florida, doing all these things, and growing this business, and building a property management company as well. You're definitely someone who has a high level of self-discipline. And I like to ask people, how did you gain that high level of self-discipline? Because I personally have seen just the benefits after you start developing, more self-discipline, the things that start to happen. How did you do that?
I think it's just as a young man, I was a student athlete. And I always strived and excelled during athletic season when everything was very structured. I like routines. So, I pretty much every day is the same with routines. You build in time for, all the different aspects of your business and your family, and you build that in there and know when it's the kids come home from school, you might have a little bit of things to finish up, but the most important thing is to spend time with them. That's why I get up every day and do what I do, is to provide for my family and to be able to spend time with them. And when they are here, I want to be fully engaged. And when they're not, or when they're in bed, that's when it's time to get things done. So it's just, I always strived really well, succeeded well when there's a lot of structure. So my calendar, everything's built in, every single piece of the operation that we need to do, whether it's working out, whether it's payables, receivables, working on marketing for the business, all those things are structured out in my calendar.
Well, that's great. Maybe this help answer the next question too, or what you just said. But are there a couple of daily habits that you're disciplined about that have helped you achieve success?
I think so. I think a lot of that is to get up and not jump right into your email, to be able to have a cup of coffee and kind of reflect on what the day looks like, have a conversation with your significant other, your business partner, and, the person who you work so hard to give a great life to. And that's really helped me over the last couple of years of getting up. And I was working a W-2 job and also growing the portfolio. I was getting up immediately checking emails. And sometimes, depending on what those emails look like, it could really set your day off course. So I focus on getting up and trying to just focus on, us and then getting into it and, building in time to take care of yourself, whether it's reading or listen to podcasts or to work out. I think is also important. It's something that I've been very lax on. I'm taking care of myself. It's always been about grow and the family and not myself. So starting next week, I have every day built into my mid-morning to go work out and take care of myself. And we're super excited to see that through.
Good for you. That's awesome. I appreciate you elaborating on that, and just how the structure is so important. I could not agree more. Even not looking at emails till like a specific time in the day, later in the day, hopefully, or later in the morning, because it can just blow your whole morning and mess it all up when you see something, instead of getting your mind right first thing.
Yeah, if I can interject again, sometimes you have something on your calendar and stuff comes up, you just can't get to it. Then just move it. Don't skip it. Move it to another day, another time where you have some openings. I typically leave Mondays and Fridays completely open for catch up and to build in long weekends if we want. Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are just slammed nonstop with activities and meetings. But those others are nice cushion days for everybody.
I like that. Then you're not so stressed either, because you have time where you can get this other thing done. And like I love how you said, well, just move it. You already have that time open. It's there. You can move it there. You don't have to stress about it right now. Hey, we'll get that done later. I know, we have time for that. So tell us your best source for, say, meeting new investors right now.
Some of the meetups are great, when you were allowed to do them, in person. That's how I met three of my partners, is just going to meetups, being sincere in who you are. Don't be fake, just, and start a conversation. I had a friend of mine who's seen me on Facebook that I was in grad school with, and we struck up another conversation. He's like, I see you're in real estate. And I told him what we were doing. And he couldn't believe it. And he connected me with another colleague, a friend of his who lives in Atlanta. He lives in Texas, and it's just happens that way. Just be yourself. People reach out to me. They see me on Facebook, and we schedule a meeting, and I just listen and ask them what they're working on. They ask me what I'm working on, and I've give them time to help them through things. And I'd say over the last month, I've had probably 25 conversations with people that I've never met. That it's just through social media. And I tell them, hey, I'm here to help you. And they say, hey, I'm here to help you too. And it started relationships that way. It's good in meetups and just be responsive and be there to help people and don't have an agenda. Just be yourself and be genuine.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
I think very similar to what I just said is, I was always raised to be kind to people and be, and it takes no effort to be kind. So again, when people reach out and they have questions, I try to give them, the opportunity to talk with me and to be kind. And people can see that I'm pretty sincere, and it's worked out extremely well. There's times where you need to be not kind, but you'll identify when those are, and but everything in between is just be good to people, and it all tends to work itself out.
And how do you like to give back? And you just talked about this, but I always like to ask how you like to give back.
Well, we've always given back to local charities and nonprofits. We think that's extremely important. I think a great community has a very vibrant nonprofit sector to make differences in people's lives. And again, I try to instill that similar motto to the kids, our children. So we give back monetarily. We give back in volunteering efforts, at least where we previously were. We're looking forward to getting involved in that here in Florida. But as far as giving back, just being there to help people with anything they might need, because I believe in karma, and that those sorts of things will tend to work themselves out on the back end.
George, I appreciate your time today. I'm grateful to have met you personally and just expose you to the listeners too. Just a great story. And congratulations again on your success for you and your wife, Angela, being able to make this happen, leaving your W-2s and going and getting to that vacation home, which became a permanent home. 5 years earlier than your goal? Is that right?
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. It's incredible. And so just a great story of that determination and that it can be done. You had a growing family, just both of you working so hard. But tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Sure. Yeah, we're on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Our website is progressivepropertyinvestments.com. Again, it's progressivepropertyinvestments.com. I can be reached through there. My cell phone's listed on the website. Our Facebook page talks a lot about, what we do as far as renovations and working with investors. The website's more geared towards, end users, residents, but it at least gives everybody opportunity to see the types of properties we have out there. But I'm here to help anybody, whether you're a seasoned investor and you want to learn about how we start our own property management company, or you're a newbie that's just trying to buy your first one with a line of credit, or you're going to house hack for a number of years. So I'm here to help any way I can, because I feel that that's how we strive in this real estate environment through teams.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.